Okay, this is an interesting topic. Someone asked me this in the comments, and it basically is if I'm looking to work in an entertainment industry or a design field where you're being a concept designer, a concept artist, and you're working or you're trying to get hired as part of a project on a AAA game or something like that, should you develop or really work on your own personality, on the deeper, subtler aspects of your art, the things that make you unique and individual, or should you just focus on make stuff look cool and shiny? That's what I want to talk about in this video. Let's jump in and get started. Just quickly, my name's Tim McBurney. I've been a professional working artist for over 20 years, and I spent quite a bit of that working as a concept artist for video games, film, feature animation, etc. And I think this is a really fun, cool topic because I know a lot of students and people who are developing themselves, or people who even have got their first job in concept art and are trying to figure out, what do I develop? How do I move from here? How do I get better? I think it's really, really important. And again, it's related to a lot of the stuff I talk about on this channel, the Drawing Codex, which is about, again, drawing stuff from your imagination and embracing this process, either the process of drawing or, in this case, design. How do we think about it and get happy doing it? So I think a lot of the answer here comes down to the fact that we are using a design process when we're working in the entertainment industry. And that's where, again, you really have to consider the overall needs of the project above any other need. It is the brief and the goal. It is what the project needs at a particular time that really dictates what gets made and what sort of feelings and emotions go into the actual art. So the answer there is that it really depends on the project. I think ultimately, if you get good at design, you kind of figure out in what cases do the projects need my personality? And in what cases do they need maybe someone else's personality? How can I appropriate visual design language? How can I appropriate someone else's ideas that may have been created a long time ago, maybe blend them with this other idea and kind of create something special that this project needs? The better you get at that design process, the better your concept art or design career will progress, because that's really what makes the money. That's what projects need. They don't always need us. They don't need us all the time. But I think, as I'll cover in the next few topics, I think it still is really important to develop yourself as an artist. Almost as a side note, I think developing yourself as an artist and viewing yourself and your desires and what you actually want to do with your art overall, if you think about this as the artist you want to be before you die, right? The skills and who you want to be and what you want to develop over the entire course of your life, over your entire career. That's something that I think you really need to keep in your mind at the top of everything, to understand who you want to be, the things that you want to do. And this is because it will help you overall as a career to focus on that, because that is the thing that you carry through all of the different projects that you work on, all of the different jobs that you'll have, all of the different companies that you work with, all the different art directors that you work with. Again, those things will change, right? It's very unlikely you're going to be working at the same place on the same thing for your entire working career. Those things change. What doesn't is you, and you do need to know yourself. You do need to understand and have passions that are sort of separate to the design process. And I think if you do that, just in general, it will help you. So I do want to say that. Doesn't matter what anyone says or, what the project needs. You do have to develop yourself as an artist, because that will give you more options. It allows you, again, to go deep on, a small number of topics that are personal to you, but that practice of really delving into something in a deep way can actually help you when you're using a design process or trying to understand other people's ideas or other visual design languages and, other things that we need to master to complete a specific brief well. Just quickly, if you want to learn a few more tips that I have for illustration, you can check out my illustration mini workshop. It's free. The link will be in the description. In that, I talk through my journey, how I became a professional comic book artist. I talk about, the major issues that I think people struggle with when they're trying to work up their portfolio and become professional artists. And I also give you a few tips about how to think of your illustration and picture making skills as you start to transition to professional work. So go check that out if that's something you're interested in. The second point here that I want to make is that there is the design process. There's what we're doing in our job, but we get hired by people and we work with people, and you might have a room full of artists who are all working on a particular project. Not every artist is going to be personally, deeply impassioned by every project. So, you might have, just throwing numbers out of the air, half the people are really kind of keen about this project, half of them aren't. And it's really just a matter of, those people who maybe aren't 100% into it to sort of find ways to get interested in it. And that's something you have to sort of work on and, figure out whether that's something you want to do. But behind that is the fact that all those people had to get hired to begin with, and people aren't always hired 100% on their skill set. They're hired on personality, and the people you're working with kind of can relate to you from a hiring perspective based on your art, based on the personal art that you post and you put out into the world. And it's important to understand, if you're just kind of a cookie cutter, I draw cool shiny things sort of concept artist, it's hard to relate to you. People don't know who you are. And, often people working on a team, one of the most important things is that you all get along. You're all kind of friends, you all kind of like the same stuff. So showing who you are through your art and having depth and having personality to the art that you create, maybe again, your sort of personal art, you'll have stuff that's definitely like, here's my production portfolio, here's kind of what I'm into. And again, people are sort of going to hire you on a mix of both. They're going to understand your design aesthetic, things you like, whether you like, comics or films or kind of, cars or automotive stuff or monsters, right? The people who are hiring you and you got to work with are interested in stuff, and they just want to kind of work with people who they get on with. So showing that and expressing that is important, because it's just a major part of what we do. We're artists. We're often working with other artists. We're talking to artists, and that's kind of almost more important than the project you're working on to a certain degree. So don't ever skip that. Don't think that just because the design process is something where we have to consider the holy project and the brief, right? That's true. You have to master that part of your craft. But at the end of the day, you're working in a room full of people and you all care about different artistic stuff. And, if people jive with, the type of art you're into, they're more likely to hire you. They're more likely to like you. They're more likely to want to keep working with you. So, even if, not every project 100% aligns with that, it's also important to understand that, you don't always need to inject a huge amount of information into a, design brief that is personal to make it interesting. And that's the third thing that I want to talk about here, is that you might sort of be thinking, look, should I just focus on generic cool stuff? And, is that what people want? Because often that is sort of what makes it into the public eye. Again, the covers are all kind of pretty much meant, video games and properties and movies. They're all kind of meant to, punch you in the face from across the room, right? That's the sort of metaphor. Like a good book cover or marketing image or sort of cool thing, again, should like hit you between the eyes from 30 meters or 30 feet away or whatever, right? It needs to be impactful. And, often what happens through that process is things get a little bit generic, right? That's fine. But often what's happening through that design process is you're actually going to get assigned roles here and there within a project team. And if you do have a personality, right, you really like sort of dark horror stuff, even if you're working on a, like a happy, colorful mobile game, again, I don't know why you would be if you really like sort of Geiger-esque, dark horror fantasy. But if you were, you might just get assigned all of the monsters in that game, for instance. And sure, you have to design cute monsters, but because, you are the one who is most interested in monsters on that project, you'll kind of be given most of those tasks, right? As a general rule, okay, like I'm talking very generically here, but that's a good way to think about it is, often we don't need all of your personality, but just that little bit, which is often quite easy for you to extract and inject into a project, means that someone can give you a task and kind of know, hey, that person will do a really good job of that because I'm asking them to do this, but I know their natural proclivity is to do this other thing. And art directors will be good at kind of knowing that you're going to inject a little bit of yourself in there, even if you're kind of trying not to, right, despite yourself. And that is actually a really good way to just sort of, get interesting design stuff happening because you've got your personality and that will sort of interact in the project in a very specific way. So it's a useful asset, even if, again, what I'm saying is we're using this analytical design process. Yes, we are, but we often can't help injecting our own personality into the work. And the more you can develop that, understand it, again, the more useful you can be on a team. And again, the fourth kind of bonus thing that I would say is that, as I said in the beginning, the more you work on this over time, when you come to your next opportunity, the next leg of your career, if you've been developing your own sort of style, your own sort of thing on the side, you're more likely to move towards projects and teams and opportunities that really are suited to your personality and your deeper kind of understanding and appreciation for art and the world anyway. So ultimately, this is something that we must develop as artists, is to develop both of these. And as a concept artist, understand when the project requires us, when it does not. There's lots of projects I've been working on where I've been hired specifically for my style because someone wants to make a video game that looks like a comic book and it needs to look exactly like my style. And that's kind of why I'm there. And I'm like, cool, I need to put myself into it. There's other projects I'll be working on where I know that, I'm not really being hired specifically for that stuff. I've been hired because I did this other thing on another project or something. And what I really need to do is just focus on the needs of the actual game and, the design brief there. And if I sort of inject too much of myself on that project, people are just going to be like, no, just stick to the brief. It's all a matter of understanding the application. And again, if you're looking to get a job, to understand that what you're going to need is a bit of both. You're going to need to prove that you understand the design process, production pipelines, your folio needs to represent that. But I have heard personally, a lot of high-level art directors have said to me, one of the things they actually look for, especially in new recruits, is that their art has something unique about it, that you can kind of tell they're passionate about it. They don't just want to be a cog in a machine. They're not just trying to sort of get a job, that they are actually an artist of some kind. They do have some sort of quirky interests because, again, that's just kind of the type of person that art director probably wants to work with. And it's a good signal to them. So I think it's always something that's good to have there, right? It's not going to be the thing you're going to put in your folio, right? Like first thing, here's my, very unique, specific, weird thing. No, you want to show you understand design process. You understand how games are made, how films are made, the requirements of those things, what you're actually going to be doing all the time. But, there's no harm in developing your own stuff and maybe having, your Instagram feed or whatever, have your own personal kind of art that's maybe a little bit different. Anyway, that's all I've got for this one. Let me know if you've got any thoughts, any other things to add to this down in the comments. I'd be super keen to hear it. Other than that, that's all I got. See you around. Happy drawing.